Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another session of Career Talk with OG. And today I have mi amiga, Doctora Blanca Baltazar-Sabbah. Did I say?
Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself. But Blanca, it's a pleasure to have you here on Career Talk with OG. I know you are super busy. You got recently, not too long ago, received a promotion to Vice President of Student Services. So, first of all, congratulations on your promotion here.
Gracias.
And see, though, and then also given the times right now, what's going on with so many challenges, uncertainty in the government. I know, again, especially you are super busy with that as well. But anyways, thank you. And let me. So first of all, everyone, let me just a quick little intro here on Blanca. And so Blanca is a first generation Latina leader who has dedicated over 25 years to public education, from teacher and counselor to district leadership and associate superintendent of the Salinas Unified High School District. And she actually is from the area. She grew up in the Pajaro Valley. She's a daughter of field and cannery workers, and so Blanca has grown up in the community and is not only serving but leading the community that she's grown up. So, Blanca, again, muchísimas gracias for being on Career Talk with OG.
Thank you for having me, Oscar. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So, Blanca, everyone and I do too. I mean, let's start. Tell us a little bit more. Fill us a little more about your upbringing, and then obviously we're going to get into some of these other questions on leadership and education and so forth. But yeah, tell us a little bit about Blanca cuando estaba niña.
Okay, bueno, cuando estaba niña. So first of all, I was born in Quiroga, Michoacán, Mexico. And my parents came over to Watsonville when I was 2. I was almost 3 years old. And the reason that they chose Watsonville is because my maternal grandfather was a bracero and had traveled to many places in the United States doing different types of work. And when he ended up in this area, Pajaro Valley, Salinas Valley, he really liked the climate. The agriculture was very familiar to him from back home in
Mm-hmm.
Michoacan. So we did come, I was undocumented basically until I was a sophomore in high school. And so
Mm,
actually, when I started school, I had a different identity. And it wasn't until I think my second or third year in school that my parents felt comfortable being able to enroll me. I moved
yeah,
schools a lot because my parents moved a lot when I was younger. It within Watsonville, but just
sure.
different areas. And so I think that was I didn't realize like I knew my name was Ana when I was younger, and then all of a sudden I'm Blanca Silvia. And just as a child, I don't even know how I had the capacity to understand or like navigate that and being
Yeah,
dual identities. And I think also the other dual identity is like being raised in a very Mexican traditional family. And
yeah.
yet, like in school, I was not in bilingual classes until I was in about fourth grade because my mom realized, oh, you don't know how to read or write in Spanish. You could just speak Spanish, right?
Oh, yes.
And so in fourth grade, I had a very impactful teacher, Miss Valdez. It was her first year teaching. And I think she really saw me for who I was as an individual and not just a number. And I'm very grateful for her because I think she saw talent in me that others didn't. And so that kind of changed my trajectory in education. So when I went to middle school, I was, in kind of on the college prep track and then went on to high school. But I am the first in my family to graduate from high school and obviously college. And so when I was in high school, my counselor didn't really encourage me to go on to college. It wasn't until and my parents were super proud of me just graduating from
Yeah.
high school. And I was working at a video store this summer after I graduated, and one of my friends said, "Hey, Blanca, where are you going to college?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not going to college. I'm trying to find a job." And he said, "Oh, no, you have to go to college. You were in my college prep classes with me. Do you know about Cabrillo College?" And I said, "No, I don't know about it." He said, "It's a community college, and so he told me where it was. And I was familiar with it because my mom and I would take the public transit to go to the mall, and Cabrillo College was one of the stops.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I went home and I told my parents, and my parents were teenagers when they had me, so they were very young. But my parents were like, "Sure, if you want to go, that's great. So I came with my mom. She brought me, and I ended up meeting my first mentor here, David Trevino, who helped me through the college process. I ended up getting federal work study, working as a student here in the EOPS program. I was an EOPS
Mm,
student. And just really, Cabrillo was a place where I spread my wings and became very active as a student leader, and then transferred to Sac State. I was majoring in math here at Cabrillo, and which was really math was not easy for me, but it was a subject that was challenging, and I like challenges. And I wanted to be a math teacher to support other
yes.
students. And so anyway, I transferred to Sac State. During that time, my father became very ill. And because I was commuting from Sacramento to Watsonville to the University of
Oh
San
my, wow.
Francisco to take him to his doctor's appointments, because I'm the oldest in my family, so I'm translating
Yes.
the family, right?
Yes.
I ended up, my father ended up passing away. He was only 41 years
Mm. Oh, jovencito.
old, and my mom became a widow at the age of 40. And
Wow.
so left behind, I was 22 at the time. My siblings were 18, 12, and 9. And I had to make a really tough choice. Like, do I stay in school and finish, or do I come back home and help my mom? And although I was getting advice to take a year off, in my heart, I knew that if I stayed, I wasn't going to, like, if I didn't go back, I wasn't going to finish. And so
Yeah.
I ended up finishing, graduating, and coming back to start my career as a teacher. And I wanted to give back to my community. I wanted to be back. And so I started as a migrant resource teacher, actually. I was also a migrant student.
Oh.
So I started
Oh.
my career there. And that was the beginning of my professional career. So, like, my lived experiences as a migrant student, as an undocumented student, as a daughter of cannery and field workers, as a granddaughter of a bracero, right? As someone who's bilingual, and
Mm-hmm.
all of those identities really are reflected in my leadership, and which is why I really lead with a lot of passion for my community, and especially those that are the most vulnerable in our populations.
Yes. Oh my God, Blanca, thank you for sharing your story. And as I was listening to it, it's like, you know how like I'm a big believer in that the energy, right, that we put out, whether it's in our attitude or just who we attract. And now hearing your story, because I have a similar story, excuse me, as yours, and it's like, and I didn't know all these details, and I'm like, now it makes sense why I sort of like got attracted to you in terms of like just seeing you and what you do and so forth, because you touched upon the importance of, I think you said Miss Valdez, and that she saw some talents and potential that others didn't. And you reminded me of the movie A Million Miles Away, Dr. Jose Hernandez, the astronaut, and his second grade teacher who saw him and said, you can go up there if you really want to.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that, Blanca, in terms of the importance of people in our lives and students' lives that are able to see that potential when the facts say otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That is so important, and that, I think, is at the core of who I am as an educator and as a leader. in my first year of teaching, I taught an AVID class. So it was all migrant students. They were mostly living in the migrant camp, and all first generation. Right? And because of my story and because of how I had grew up, I was able to relate to them. And they, not only did I believe in them and they knew I believed in them, but they saw themselves reflected in me. So like representation matters, right? Miss Valdez was like my first Latina teacher I ever had, right?
Yeah.
So I think that giving those, and then, but what was most impactful, so I have to say, when I transitioned out of the classroom to be a counselor, the high school where I was at is, like 50% white. It was at the time 50% white, 50% Latino, very affluent community. And so when I became a counselor, it was also seeing the impact that I could have on students who perhaps had a different perception of Mexican educators, or because I would have my students tell me, oh, I thought, like, I've only seen Mexican people as the secretary or the custodian,
Mm-hmm.
or right. But now, like, I'm the counselor, I'm helping guide to get their education. So, and then the fact that, I'm learning from them and they're learning from me, right? And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
um, that is so important. And to be able to see all the talents that individuals have and to be that person that believes in them. I have students now 20 years later still, contacting me and talking to me. I've actually have a student here at Cabrillo who saw that I started working here and then decided to enroll herself.
Oh
And
my God.
because she saw that connection with me, and now she felt comfortable coming back to school and seeking my guidance and my advice. And I was her high school counselor, right? And so it's like this beautiful full circle moment.
Yes. Oh, yes. I ran into last October. We were exhibiting at the Colegas conference in Sacramento, and I ran into my EOPS counselor from high school, Alicia Cortez, who retired from Dianza College, but now she's a trustee at the Gavilan Community College. I don't know if you know of her or Alicia Cortez, but she was, yeah, my EOPS counselor that just took an interest. And it's interesting because to me, and now obviously, with kids and so forth. So yeah, I get that special moment for both, for the
Mm-hmm.
student and for you as well. But I have a question for you. Let me hold on here. Let me just so now you have spent many years developing and implementing equitable programs for students. What are some key strategies that truly make a difference in fostering success in students?
The number one thing is building connections, building
Oh,
relationships. I think when at any level, whether you're a classroom teacher, a faculty member, counselor, the person who greets you in the front office, um, that relationship with students is really what's going to create that sense of belonging. And when
mm-hmm.
students feel that sense of belonging, they're going to really, one, they're going to trust you. So they're going to ask for help. Two, they're going to feel like anything is possible because they've made that connection with you and you believe in them, right? That's
Yeah.
so critical and foundational. So in any position that I've ever been in, that has been something that's really important to me, at any level. So whether,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the other piece is professional development. With another key strategy is professional development with culturally relevant pedagogy. When
Yes.
students also feel seen
Yes.
and heard within the curriculum in the classroom, when their lived experiences are valued as an asset,
Yeah.
that creates also like this sense of pride and a sense of belonging, right? And so
Hmm.
I think those are really critical. And so there's a lot of professional development that goes into creating spaces where students can feel that relevance, right, to their culture.
Yeah.
I think the other is the community, right? And being able to bring in community resources to also support. So having like these wraparound services for our students that many of our students have many identities. There's a lot of intersectionality. So as a leader, as an educator, trying to build community partnerships to ensure that
Hmm.
things that we cannot do at the college or in a district, that we're able to bring in other resources for our students, and being able to like break down those barriers that may be prohibiting them from being able to focus on the academics. Like I want to be able to remove those thoughts about, oh, I have to go because I have to go take care of my younger sibling, or I have to go because I have to take
Yes.
care of my own children, or financial resources, housing resources. There's a lot of food insecurity, right? So how do we partner with the community? So I
Yes.
would say those are some really key strategies, but really the bottom line is we need to create that sense of belonging, and we do that by creating those relationships and showing our students that we care about them and that we're going to do anything possible to
Yeah.
support them in their goals.
Absolutely. You just reminded me of the phrase "Mi casa es tu casa."
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, if you think about it, our most sacred space is our home. Yet, as Latinos, we are very welcoming, right? We open our home to strangers, right? Whoever. I remember back in 2019, I did my first international training in Panama, and it was organized by a chamber of commerce in a small town. And literally, after my first completing the workshop, this this gentleman walked up who was in the audience, introduced himself, and he said, "What are you guys doing for dinner tonight?" Because it was the rest of the team. I'm like, we don't have any plans. He's like, "Do you want to come over our house?" And I was blown away because I'm like a complete stranger opening his house. We went over to his house and we were there until like 2 in the morning,
Wow.
eating and having just a great time. But right, that's
Yeah.
that's what you're talking about. Mi casa es tu casa, and so forth. But now, Blanca, another question for you. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges today facing first generation and underrepresented students uh, as they are pursuing their academic um, aspirations and goals?
Some of what our students have shared here is one that, first of all, where we live, there's a high cost of living, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of our first gen students need to help their families, so they have to work. And so there's this like tension between going to school full time, working part time, or working full time and going to school part time, right? And so that is one of the challenges, is just like the tension between like family responsibilities and their own kind of pursuit and goals. And so to address that, we really try to encourage more of our students to obviously apply for financial aid, look at the different resources that we have, the grants, the emergency grants, being able to provide them with resources such as a laptop, for example. We've had a grant, fortunately, to have like childcare reimbursement, um,
Mm,
textbook reimbursements, right? So trying to inform our students that there's these different resources that they can access. So that's one of the challenges. I think the other challenge is being a first generation college student, and you're coming from, like, if you're coming directly from high school to college, it's such a different environment and culture. You don't have anybody like holding your hand and telling you, right? And I can
yes.
share from personal experience, when I started college, I was handed a syllabus. I had no idea what it was. And then all of a sudden I show up one day and it's like midterm time. And I'm like, what? What do you mean it's midterm time? And they're like, well, didn't you read the syllabus? And I'm like, well, what's a syllabus? I don't know what a syllabus is. Right. And so I think it's really understanding the college culture. Like,
Yes.
what is the syllabus? How do I navigate Canvas? Like, what does it mean if do I have to show up to class? Is attendance important? What do you mean I only get one midterm and one final? So it's all those just really, I think, things that are processes in the college system that we assume our students know and they don't know it, right? And so we do have a college and guidance course that, you know, we encourage all of our first year students to take so that they can learn about time management. How do you
Yes.
study? Like, you do have to study, you do have to do your homework, even though nobody's checking it. It's really important,
Hmm.
right? We do have tutors. I remember like not going. I didn't want to go to a tutor because I was like, I don't want them to think I'm dumb, you know?
Yes.
And then I got a D in my physics midterm, and I was like, my mentor was like, you need to go see a tutor. And I was like, oh, you know, but so it's those things that you're just not used to asking for help, right? I don't want to
Yes.
seem, so I think those are the challenges of a first generation college student, that just not knowing what you don't know, right? And
Yes.
I think the willingness, las ganas is there. I think the support of the family is there. I think we just have to make it a space that they can understand, and
Yeah.
make it more transparent for them.
Yes. Yes. Oh, and everything that you talked about. I mean, oh gosh, I've experienced this when many years ago when I was at Berkeley, my freshman year, uh, walking into the Econ 101 auditorium with 800 students. My graduating class was 300. And to your point, I saw the professor walk up, tap the podium, read the syllabus in like 30 seconds, and then she started lecturing. And she was using these fancy words. She was speaking English, fancy words, but I'm like, I have no idea what that word means. And to your point, you said it with counselors. I felt dumb because I didn't understand what she was saying, even though she was speaking English.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
no,
Just navigating our system is complex. It's not
absolutely.
easy, you know?
Yeah. Now, I love, when you and I were kind of going back and forth in terms of, the title for today's talk, which is, leading with Corazón, a Latina VP's vision for student success. Um, I didn't have initially Corazón in the suggestion that I was, and you said, hey, what about adding Corazón? And it's like perfect, because obviously now as I've gotten to know more about your story, your upbringing, I see where that comes from. Now I have a question for you. In the academic space, I mean, obviously there's always these reports that you need to fill out, and these metrics and so forth. So my question is, how do you balance data-driven decision making with leading, as you say, con corazón,
Hmm.
with your heart?
Yeah. So I think I think courageous conversations have to be had when we're looking at data and our students we're not doing what we need to do to help our students be successful. And so I tend to lead with a firm back, but an open heart.
I
Right.
like that.
So I have to be firm in decisions, but I do it, and in conversations, right?
Yeah.
But I do it with an open heart, which means like having those conversations with empathy, having those conversations, understanding that these are difficult, but they had to be had if we are really trying to increase student success,
Yeah.
right? And that everybody who's worked with me knows that students come first. And so if we're making a decision, based on data, how is this going to support or increase our student success, right? Sometimes we do things because we love to do them and they're fun for us and we feel good. but sometimes the feel good is not yielding the results that we need to see in our
Yeah.
students, right? So those are
Yeah.
difficult conversations because we want to do the feel good, and we also have to align that with ensuring that it's doing what it has to do to help our students succeed.
Yeah. Ooh. And yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. And I mean, we work with many colleges and universities across the country, and we have the opportunity to see how some colleges really focus more on the metrics, right? They lean on, and not so much with the heart, con el corazón, and yeah. So
But
yeah,
I
it's
think part of that, Oscar, is like that's why earlier how I talked about the importance of building relationships. That's also true with our colleagues. It's also true with one another because the more we can get to know each other, the more we can build relationships, we can better understand our perspectives. And that is like at the core, I believe, of equity work is
mm,
understanding us having our own understanding. It's like kind of that reflection of ourselves and who we are,
yes,
so that we can understand ourselves better and understand where our biases are, right? And then
yes,
also like the looking out the window, right? So it's like the reflection of the mirror and then looking out the window so that we can then better understand each other. So we may not always agree, but at least we have a common understanding of our perspectives and why we feel the way that we feel or why we're
yeah,
going to make a decision, right? And so I think what has helped me as a leader is fostering those relationships so that when we do have to have those difficult conversations, that it makes it land a little easier because there's trust there, and
see,
trust really matters, right?
absolutely,
That they know
absolutely, yeah,
that we're coming, that they know it's like from a genuine place, right?
right, 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 right. And what you mentioned there, that trust, that fostering that trust with colleagues, with other departments, and so forth. So you're right. It's when you do need to have those difficult conversations that everyone knows. Again, it's not that I'm just picking on you, I don't like you, or I'm out to get you, but rather, as you said, we have the best interest of the students. Things aren't going the way we planned. What do we need to do to change and adapt? You know,
Right.
so no, absolutely. But I have otra pregunta, another question for you, and that is that, and I want to go back to what you talked about community because that is very, very important too as well. What what are some ways that if you were going to give a talk to other colleges, universities about community involvement, community collaboration, what are some things, some advice that you would give them to really foster that strong community collaboration and involvement?
So I think one is really we have to embed ourselves within the community. So I think one way I can give just an example, we can be in different nonprofit boards, for example. That's like one level of involvement so that we
Hmm.
foster that relationship. Two is going to community events, community meetings where we're able to network and talk about our college. Since I became vice president, I've been invited to multiple Rotary Club meetings to talk
Yeah.
about myself, my story, and also to talk about Cabrillo. And I take those opportunities to talk about our students and who they are and the demographics and how they can be of support and how we can
Mm,
partner,
yes.
right? So
Yes.
taking the opportunities when we have the platform to
Yes.
be able to share stories about our students, because many times we focus on the numbers and not the qualitative data, not who our students are, not our stories. And I feel like being able to share our student stories is going to be a more powerful way. So anytime we have that opportunity with community organizations, I think we should do that. And then being at the center. So just recently, we've been partnering a lot with the Watsonville Film Festival. So when we were doing our HSI week a couple of years ago, we said, "Hey, Watsonville Film Festival, will you show a movie?" And so they bring more community members, right? And then we invited them to Cabrillo to come and watch a movie, right? And it was like, let's just say Coco, or.
Yes.
Um, and we're partnering with the Watsonville Public Library. They're doing a commemoration of the 40th year Watsonville cannery strike. So
Oh,
we're co-sponsors, and we're doing that with the community. So anytime that there's an opportunity that we see that the community is being celebrated in a way, how can Cabrillo co-sponsor? So it's reciprocal. So later, when something else is happening, they can come to Cabrillo and think about
yes.
it as a partner, right? So I think that but I think nonprofits are really essential because they can help support our students. But then also it's a way for us in different platforms to share the stories of our students, so that we build that sense of community across, the county for us.
Yes. Yeah. So getting on boards, taking the opportunity to speak at events, identifying some key community partners, and looking for ways to collaborate on events and so forth is what I heard.
Yeah. Yeah, and like one example with our health, we have a student health services here, and recently we got a grant, and so we thought, how do we partner with Salud para la Gente so that they can also be on our campus and provide services to our students, right? So just thinking about, and we may not need all the services, but it shows the community that there's that partnership, right? So now also when folks go to Salud para la Gente, they can say, hey, well, at Cabrillo, right? So it's a really nice way to collaborate.
Yes. Woo. This is exciting. This is exciting. Cabrillo, now con Blanca here leading it. Some big changes here happening. Okay, mira, last question here
Yes.
as we wrap it up here. So, and I saved this one for the end here. And the question is, if you could give one piece of advice to educators, administrators, or community leaders about advancing equity in education, what would it be?
Whew. So be your authentic self and be the voice at the table when you're at the table for those who are voiceless.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yes, because think back, right? That little girl that came, I think what you said, 2 or 3 years old when you came first, and your own journey, your own struggle with te llamabas Ana, ahora eres Blanca, right? And internally, right? Like you're trying to figure out like what's going on. And now for you to be in the position that you are of influence, of leadership, but you still bring your authentic self, your story, wherever it is that you go. And I think it's beautiful, Blanca. And it's honestly, it's a blessing to the community, to the students, to your team, your staff, that you now are in this role, and you continue to no olvidarte. Our parents often say, "Nunca te olvides de dónde vienes," right? Never forget where you come from, and you certainly embrace that. But Buck, I want to thank you for being on Career Talk with OG, sharing your story, sharing some great tips here for those in education, for the community, and just anyone really that's pursuing any leadership roles. It's definitely been fortunate to have you here. So, muchísimas gracias.
Gracias a ti, Oscar. Gracias.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining us. Stay tuned for our next session of Career Talk with OG. We'll continue to bring incredible people here. All right, so have a fantastic rest of the week, everyone. Thank you.